Life is getting a little more dangerous in the silo, and I'm all about it. Let's talk about Season 1, Episode 7, Flamekeepers. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass. It's Friday, which means it's a new Silo day. It's Season 1, Episode 7, Flamekeepers. It premieres on Apple TV Plus on June 9th, 2023. This episode continues right where the last episode left off after Jules found this ancient old world relic, a kind of travel brochure that was given to George and then passed on to her. It shows scenes of the outside world. It shows a life that she can't even possibly imagine. And this episode builds on it and shows what Jules is going to do after she kind of has this new revelation. So is this episode worth your time? Yes, my hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. Look, this series just keeps getting better and better, and I love how this is getting more interesting and more kind of dangerous as Jules gets deeper into the overall kind of like plot and machinations of the silo. This episode has plenty of intrigue, some new revelations, and a really great ending. I really enjoyed this episode. And I love how like the conspiracy of the silo gets deeper and deeper as Jules kind of starts to unravel these threads. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the episode, a few things I like. There really wasn't anything I didn't like, and then go into a recap. As you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap portion. If you don't want to know what happens in this episode, turn it off when I get there. Before that, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free, and I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, like I said, Season 1, Episode 7 kind of starts right after this big revelation where Jules found this old travel book that showed the outside world. It showed things that she couldn't even possibly imagine, like a beach with water and being outside and people like having a picnic and travel and different types of terrain. All things that she and like the other residents of the silo have since forgotten since they were forced to live in there. But we also find out that maybe some of the residents haven't fully forgotten. Gloria, who was a kind of like holistic midwife in the first episode, makes an appearance here now. She is being held in a medical wing, and she seems to occasionally have like flashbacks of a time before they were in the silo. She has this vision of being at the beach and then seeing like a man and a child at the beach. She kind of like sees this just before a nurse comes and gives her this medication to kind of like make her forget, keep her drugged up, and prevent her from like remembering this or talking to other people about it. How does this relate to Jules' investigation? And what does this relate to the overall aspects of the silo? Well, you'll have to keep watching to find out. So, things I liked about this episode. The first, I really like Billings. He might be my favorite character in this whole series. He has a prominent role in this episode that I really love. And he also gets a little fired up at Jules. I love seeing kind of his emotion and his concern for the things that Jules does, and also the effect that has on him and what he has to now do to kind of help her and cover up. I really liked a very early speech that he did. It was very emotional. And I like that Billings is kind of like coming out of his shell from essentially the patsy that we thought he was going to be a few episodes ago. I wish he had a bigger role in this episode. He had a very short role, but I'm hoping that in future episodes, he's going to come back in and really help kind of move along Jules' investigation and move along her end goals. So the second thing I like is Jules' investigation. I like how she is approaching this investigation. I like how she just doesn't really care for the hierarchy. It doesn't really care for like the way things are done. I like that her approach is very different from how all the other people in this, I guess, level of the silo would do it. It really shows why Holston probably recommended that she take over, because she doesn't approach things the way that everyone else does. She kind of has a can-do attitude. She's from a little bit lower in the silo where they just kind of had to get things done. And that's how she is approaching this investigation. She doesn't really care what people say. She doesn't really care about other people's reactions to what she's doing. She's just trying to get the work done, trying to kind of get her answers, and she doesn't really care whose feathers she ruffles along the way. Will it pay off? Well, it seems to be paying off so far, but we'll see if it keeps going. We'll see if her luck holds out. The third thing I love the intrigue. I love how this episode kind of ups the danger. It's not like an actual danger, but there is this kind of implied inherent danger in what Jules is doing and some of the revelations that happen. I love how this episode really brought that to the front. There was some really good writing where things were said where you kind of like get the idea that maybe there is a larger plot going on here. There is a larger kind of aspect of the silo that is being investigated. You've gotten hints of that for the last few seasons, but this one I think really drives it home with how many people seem to know what is going on and how scared people are of that overall framework. And the last thing I loved is the ending. What an ending this episode had. Silo has done a pretty good job the last few episodes of ending on a high note, and this one is no different. I really love the way this ended. I really love the revelations that you got, and it made me just so excited to see what happens next week. So That is Silo Season 1, Episode 7. It's coming to Apple TV Plus on June 9th, 2023. Go check out the episode. It's a fantastic one. I'm going to go into a recap right now. So if you don't want to know what happens in the episode, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So like I said, Jules is exploring this relic that was given to her kind of through George, and she sees other people's names on it. And one of the names that is in the book, I believe it's Annie, Gloria, and then George. George is obviously the person at last. That was Georgia, her Jules's boyfriend, or well, secret lover, I guess. Gloria was the person who seemed to have it right before George, and Jules seems to know who that is. So Jules does some quick research, and she finds that Gloria is in like the hospital wing of the silo. So she goes to try to have a meeting with her. She blows off her own normal job, her own sheriff job, to kind of do this special investigation. And obviously she can't tell anyone. So when Billings asks what she's doing, she says, hold down the fort. I can't tell you. And she goes to the hospital wing. When she gets to Gloria, she kind of uses her sheriff influence to get in and see her, and catches an interesting statement from Gloria. She says something about how she could see them in the water. And I think Jules immediately knows what this is. She knows that this is related to at least a beach, which makes sense because if Gloria was the previous owner of the relic, then she would have seen that picture. And you also saw that like that picture that Gloria saw in her head at the very start was the exact same space as was in the brochure. So Jules is thinking that Gloria knows more than what is being let on, and she also thinks that they are drugging her to prevent that. So Jules goes to her next stop. She wants to talk to Judge Meadows to see why Gloria is in there. Now, while this is happening, she gets a call from Billings on the radio, and she kind of ignores it because Jules is very singularly focused. She wants to get her investigation done. Judge Meadows isn't there, but unfortunately for Jules, that call was very important. There was a disturbance on level 26. There was a big brawl that Billings and another sheriff have to go in and break up. Now, it would have been really great to have the actual sheriff there. They called her multiple times, but she blew them off. So after Jules finally returns to the sheriff's office, Billings is pissed. He confronts her and asks and like demands to know what she's doing. And she is flippant with him, but he says, he had to break up this fight and he had to cover for her when the mayor showed up to ask what was going on. And Billings, who is very by the book, very kind of like uptight, says he had to lie to the mayor to cover for her, and he basically says like, you have to give me a reason why I just lied. Like, what is going on? I love this scene. I love Billings' speech. I love kind of like the emotion that he has in it. Is a really great way to kind of start this episode off. And that's when Jules reveals that she knows that George was murdered, and the other people that they've kind of blown off in the investigation were also murdered. So she's trying to pull on those threads to figure out how they're all related and try to get to the bottom of this. So after this, Jules goes to the cafeteria and meets up with her old friend, this random person she keeps seeing in the cafeteria. It's getting a little weird that they keep beating up. Like, I assume that he will have a bigger, more prominent role in the last few episodes of this season, but it's strange how much effort they have put to put him into these situations and have him kind of interact with Jules. Now in this one, he and Jules look at the stars for a little bit, and he's telling Jules about this one time he saw a light like move across the sky, which is interesting. You don't know, maybe it was a shooting star, maybe it was an airplane that was flying across and the filters weren't able to stop it. Who knows? But during this explanation, he goes in and tries to kiss Jules. She pulls away from him and then quickly leaves. So again, they're spending all this time kind of, I don't know, establishing him as a character, and yet it doesn't really seem to be that earned. Doesn't really seem to be kind of like a real point. I'm sure we will find a point in the last few episodes. I really hope we do, because he is an interesting character, but the amount of time that we've spent with him, given what he's contributed, not so great. But that being said, after this, Jules also goes to see the mayor, who basically tells her that Judge Meadows essentially threatened him, saying like if he obstructed Judge Meadows' agenda, that she would use the pact to remove him. The mayor recently supported Jules on an argument between Jules and Judge Meadows, and Judge Meadows just wanted, I guess, threaten him and establish like her turf and make sure that he's got in line. So the mayor is none too pleased about this. He has tried to stay out of Judge Meadows' way, but he's worried that she's becoming too powerful. So he wants something to kind of keep her in check. Jules thinks that she might have this, but she has to finish her investigation. So the mayor's like, go quickly. So now Jules goes to see Judge Meadows. She wants to find out more about why Gloria is being held in the hospital, and also lift the order so that she can like talk to Gloria and maybe like take her out of this hospital. Judge Meadows is flippant. She is at home. She's sick and she doesn't really want to talk to Jules. Talks to her anyways after Jules kind of like threatens to reveal what is happening. And after Jules asks to kind of have the medical order lifted, Judge Meadows says that she can't. And Jules is like, why can't you? You're the judge. And after some more prodding, Judge Meadows basically says, like, she can't because they'll never let her, which is implies that there is this like higher power group of individuals that are kind of running the silo. Like she said, Judge Meadows is supposed to be kind of the pinnacle of power in the silo, and if she is afraid to do something, or if she can't do something, that means there must be someone else who's kind of like pulling the strings in the silo. I've gotten some hints of that recently. We saw Sims go into this like camera room that had cameras all over. It also seems like that is the room that Sims' dad, who was supposed to be a janitor, also used to go into. And so it seems like there has been the structure in the silo of a, I don't know, secret organization, or like a secret group, a secret cabal maybe, of people that control how the silo operates. So now Jules needs to pull in some more favors. She goes to see her dad and basically wants her dad to help her get Gloria out of there, or at least get Gloria off of the drugs so that she can talk to her. Her dad says, you can't talk like that. It's dangerous to talk like that, which again implies that other people seem to know that they're either being watched or observed, or something is going on. Eventually, Jules' dad agrees to help her, and he goes to the hospital late at night, like right before closing, with some excuse, and gets Gloria out of her room and into the nursery. Her dad seems to know that the nursery is a room that they don't monitor. So her dad seems to be pretty deep into this conspiracy. At least he knows certain things about what is happening. And so he takes Gloria into this room that is not being monitored so Jules can have some time. They're able to kind of like get Gloria off the drugs using an anti-sedative, which is a harrowing moment, but everything works out. And that's when Gloria kind of wakes up, becomes more coherent, and gets upset that Jules' dad is there. She said that Jules' dad prevented them from having a baby, and she like wants him to leave. Now her dad tries to play it off, but Jules is having none of it, and she just tells him to leave. So now Jules shows Gloria the relic, the brochure, and Gloria recognizes it. She says she hasn't seen it in a very long time. Then she tells Jules about this like secret resistance organization called the Flamekeepers. Now, it's not clear if they were like actually like a rebel organization, or if they were just trying to remember what the silo was like before they were in the silo. It could have almost been like a historical group, but eventually, because the silo leadership wanted everyone to forget about life outside the silo and started putting, I guess, something in the water to make people forget, the Flamekeepers ended up becoming essentially a rebel organization because they were trying to remember, and the silo leadership cabal, whatever you want to call it, didn't want them to do that. But it went further than just trying to make people forget. The silo leadership also wanted to stop the Flamekeepers from having children, essentially like cut off those lines, make sure that they don't propagate, and eventually, if they control who can have kids, there will be no resistance. That is where Gloria said that Jules' dad intervened, that he did not actually remove her birth control and prevented her from having a baby. The same thing happened to Holston and his wife when they got their authorization. That was the revelation that prompted Holston's wife to pull out her own birth control to show that Jules' dad lied about removing it. Gloria says that she then that she eventually gave this book to George's mom, Anne, who was the last Flamekeeper. Now, Anne clearly gave this to George, and then George gave it to Jules. So that is the line of succession for this book. But we also find out that George's mom, Anne, knew Jules's mom. George's mom was helping Jules's mom with some sort of device, some sort of relic, a magnifying glass. And that Jules's mom wasn't officially a Flamekeeper, but she had the curiosity that would be required of someone who's interested in the outside world and interested in like remembering what the outside world was like. Now, when Jules kind of like confronts her dad with this knowledge about like preventing people from having kids, he says that they basically told him that they were doing this to prevent some genetic diseases from propagating through the population. They were trying to cut off these bad genetic diseases for the good of like the silos population. I don't think he really believed it, but that's at least the justification that he needed to then do these horrible things. And Jules is pretty disgusted by this. Now, Jules then takes Gloria back to her room. And when she gets there, Gloria notices that her flowers were missing. There were flowers that were right by her mirror that used to be there. And she notices that they were missing, and she remembers that Sheriff Holston put this flowers right there. That prompts like a memory in Jules's mind of like a piece of paper that she found, I think, in Holston's apartment that said, "Double the flowers in front of the mirror." So Jules thinks back about some of the things that she's seen, some of the things that she's found out, and she realizes that there's some sort of camera in the mirror. So this like cabal, the like shadow organization, is using those cameras to watch what's happening. Jules puts a blanket over the mirror to prevent them from seeing, and asks Gloria like what Holston did when he was here. And Gloria's like, he spent a lot of time at the vent. So Jules heads up to the vent, undoes it. The watchers can't see what's going on, but they can hear that something is going on. So they send a strike team down to like stop it and like figure out what Jules is doing. Jules eventually opens the vent, reaches in, and inside you find a bag with the hard drive. This hard drive that George found that we saw had a picture of the outside world and who knows what other information on it. That had been lost when George died. It's basically what George had been killed over. And now we find it. It was in Gloria's room the whole time. So after all these revelations, after she has these relics, Gloria tells Jules that she's the last Flamekeeper now. Like, it's not fair. It's not what Jules wanted, but it is what it is. And she has to keep the flame alive. She can't let it die. She can't, because if she lets it die, then essentially the entire resistance, the entire Flamekeeper organization, and what they all fought for is going to die too. And Gloria ends this with asking Jules what her mother would want her to do. And then she asks, did you know why she killed herself? And a big intriguing question. I don't think Jules knows. We don't find out what that is, because then it switches to the like strike team coming down the stairs, knocking on the hospital door, entering Gloria's room. By this point, Jules has already gone, and they ask, where is she? And boom, that's the episode. We don't know how Jules escaped. We don't know, what's going to happen to Gloria. And we also don't know why Jules' mom killed herself. But I'm excited to find out what happens next now. I think in true kind of like Silo fashion, we'll figure out why Jules' mom killed herself pretty early in the next episode. They usually kind of like answer that revelation pretty early. But what's going to happen next? Well, now that Jules understands more about what's going on and seems to be on the radar of the Watchers, she's going to have to watch her back. I think that she will probably, first thing, take down her mirror and see what's going on. But I think she'll probably also have to get Holston involved, because he seems to be more and more intricately intertwined in this organization, and she has a connection to Sims and the judiciary, so maybe he will help her figure some stuff out. And I think we'll probably get that like observant guy involved. He said he was in IT. IT is going to be important, because I assume that is where some of this technology has gone through, some of these video feeds. There's got to be some connection there to like the monitoring that is happening with the Watchers. So I think he'll also be important, and we'll probably also figure out what else is on that hard drive. Maybe the IT guy will help Jules with the hard drive. I think Jules might be able to figure out, but maybe she needs the equipment. Maybe she just needs some additional assistance to get in that hard drive. Oh, and we'll also probably figure out which side Jules' dad is on. It seems like he was heavily in the Watcher side. He did some things for Jules because she's family, because he loves her in this episode. I think at some point he'll probably have to make a choice of which side he's going to support. And probably all the other power brokers in the silo will have to make a choice of who they support. It seems like the mayor is more on the resistance side. It seems like Judge Meadows is very much on the Watcher side. We'll see where those alliances end up at the end of this season, but I'm excited to find out. So this is Silo Season 1, Episode 7, Flamekeepers. It comes to Apple TV Plus on June 9th, 2023. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.